RP Show continues, brought to you in part by Outlaw Communications, where creativity isn't a hobby, it's a way of life. And a very exciting day for us. We're broadcasting live across Canada, Game Plus Television, 32 U.S. states, but it's our first day on the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network across the beautiful state of Nevada. Speaking of beautiful, our good friend Hnidy joins us from the Golden Knights broadcast crew. How you doing, Knights?
I'm good, Roddy. How you doing? It's that
Fa-
exciting time of year, right?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Nides. One of my longest friends in this trade of sports is Hnidy. We go back a real long ways. And do you have the feeling of New Year, the new season? I'm sure that optimism abounds at T-Mobile Arena.
It certainly does, and I'm not a big fan of preseason. Never was when I played, and there's a necessity to it. I'm looking forward to next year when they drop to four, and we're starting the season at this time next year. But that said, I think kind of spoiled here. A lot of the preseason games we go to, the home games, there's some packed stands. People are excited. A lot of talk about what's the team going to look like. Well, that's the thing. We really haven't seen the team all put together for a game yet. That usually happens the last two games they play in the preseason. But a lot of excitement, certainly with the arrival of Mitch Marner here in Las Vegas.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to get to this year's Golden Knights in a second, but I love, as you know, talking about your career. Pride of Neepawa, Manitoba, 550 games. I learn something new, Nides, every time I look you up. You'd think I would have this memorized, but Ottawa, Nashville, Florida, Atlanta, Anaheim, Boston, Minnesota, then back to Boston. I didn't realize that your last game was after you won the Stanley Cup in 2011. What was your thinking there? You're like, I'm just going to ride off into the sunset. Like that's a hell of a last game to have.
That's it. Yeah, that's to be there and to be part of that. And uh, I would say it's great to do that. When you play professional sports, and especially at the high level, you don't really see an end in sight. I think it was more my body telling me I was done than anything that summer. And to be honest, it was the opportunity. I wanted to still play another year. I felt I had another year in me, but an opportunity to, get into what I do now was with the Winnipeg Jets, who just moved after that win to Atlanta to Winnipeg, my home province, and I got a call and an opportunity to get into broadcasting and being an analyst on radio, and it's turned out to be a pretty good decision for me here sitting. This is year 16 now of broadcasting.
Yeah. You've done more games broadcasting than playing. I'm sure you've thought about that. And tell me, please, compare winning a Stanley Cup as a player to winning a Stanley Cup as a broadcaster as you did with the Golden Knights. Both great, but I'm sure far different feelings.
There really is. And it's funny. I just had this conversation the other day. I've been fortunate enough to win as a player. Certainly, biggest accomplishment you can do to play. It's the dream of every guy that laces up and has dreams of playing first in the NHL and then winning the Stanley Cup. So, that's one. Winning with this team and their ability to do it in 6 years, a new franchise, extremely incredible, magical, and great to be along for the ride. The one that kind of, to me, the season that might be right up there, which is the inaugural season here in Vegas, and we're coming up on the terrible tragedy of that anniversary, the anniversary of it here in 1 October. But that first year with what happened there, this new team, this band of misfits coming in and making a run to the final, like it was unheard of. It's hard to believe it was a reality looking back on it. So that one I would put right up there with both those wins. It was such a special season to be part of what happened here in Las Vegas that year with everything that went on around it, and then this team coming in and just it was like a healing. It was just bonding everybody together, and now that connection is here between the Golden Knights and this city.
Well, you know what's awesome about all of that, with you going to the Stanley Cup and just the way the city rallied around you, and we all remember the horrible tragedy and your opening
Yeah.
night, all of that. But with your general manager Kelly McCrimmon, who I've known since I was 16, has everybody else figured out now, Nides, that you're always going to be a contender when Kelly McCrimmon's running the show? I was telling everybody, it's like they weren't listening. And the one year you missed the playoffs, you said on this show, you're like, if you're missing your two best players, anybody's going to struggle to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it was Mark Stone, and who was the other one that you were missing that year? Do you
Oh
remember?
boy, you're going to press my memory. Uh,
Either or. It was Stone and one
yeah,
of your other big guns, but that was the
yeah.
reason. But the one thing I hear about Golden Knights fans is that they're spoiled. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Well, you can use the term, but that's they're spoiled, I guess, because the team came, and they've had immediate success for a long time. They're not like the storied franchises where there's the ebbs and the flows, the ups and the downs. Those haven't come, and you know, credit to them. I think with that, if people think you're a spoiled fan, there's a little bit of jealousy in that, and it is a new fan base, and the team is competitive. It's hard to think of year one when they went to the finals probably. Outside of that, every year they've been considered a contender. And last year, I didn't think they got the credit. People that kind of overlooked them. They went and won the Pacific. This year, they're not getting overlooked from a lot of people. And it is hard to predict because there's so many good teams. It is so hard to win in the National Hockey League just to get to playoffs and then winning the Stanley Cup. And I know you're down in FLA and what they've done going 3 years in a row, just incredible. Same thing when Tampa did it just to get to that final. And it is a long grind. Starts with 82 games this year, the regular season, and you got to have luck, you got to have health, you got to have a few things that go your way. But certainly the roster comes into play, and they've got as good a roster as anybody.
Well, you just mentioned winning the pennant last year in the Pacific Division. You were a contender, Nides, before you signed Mitch Marner. Like, I think the Leafs are going to drop 5 to 10 points without this guy. You've been around him. He's been on the ice in camp. What's this team going to do with that guy?
Well, I think right now they've got him with Jack Eichel, and I think it's going to, maybe force Eichel to shoot a little more. I think his goal totals can go up to the 40 mark, no problem. He's got an incredible shot. Um, you're talking about a highly elite, a top 20 guy in the National Hockey League, if not higher, one of the top wingers, elite offensive abilities, and maybe underrated on what he can do defensively. One of the top penalty killers. He's first over the boards for years in Toronto, whether power play, penalty kill, last minute of a game, needing a goal at the end of the game. He plays in all scenarios. I think he's come here now, and a kid who grew up in Toronto, we've been in that market. If you play there and you have success, it's unbelievable. It is the fans, certainly the passion they have for the Toronto Maple Leafs across Canada, and certainly in that Toronto area. But he's been around it his whole life. I think there's something to be said about coming here and getting a fresh start in a sense for him. And I'm excited to see what he can do. You can't deny his ability. I'm certainly we've seen what goes on with the media and how passionate they are there. And I've seen this before. Certain players get this, everybody said, oh, good luck with him. Well, I remember they said that about Jack Eichel coming from Buffalo. Different scenario, with the
Yeah.
neck and the injury and wanting to go, but very similar. Buffalo's, oh, you guys can deal with that. Sure. Okay, we'll deal with it. Came here. I have one of the most competitive, great men I've met is Jack Eichel, and I think Mitch Marner. It's been brief right now, but he has been terrific to deal with. He's motivated. I think, and then it's just both those guys. They're top elite skilled players, and it's going to be exciting to see what they can do, whether together or for Bruce Cassidy. He's got lots of things to move around. As of now, Mark Stone, he's playing with Carlson and Riley Smith. That's line three if you want to mark it. That's a pretty tough matchup, and you got Hurdle, Dorofeev, Sod, and then that top line. So it's a deep lineup. They've restructured. They've got, I think one of the big ones, Nick Hague for Colton Sisson and Jeremy Lazon. They wanted to identify a fourth line and one that's going to forecheck heavy. And Colton Sisson's the veteran guy, comes down the middle and play with Brett Howden, who had 20 goals last year, and Keegan Colasar. So the depth is there. Now you need a lot of things to fall in place over the next 82 games, but certainly they looked ready to go and again motivated to be a contender for the cup.
Vegas Golden Knights color commentator Shane Hnidy is with us on Game Plus Television and the Silver State Sports Entertainment Network. And we've got your fans have some questions for you. John in Winnipeg says, it's great you have Nides on. He's got the cool threads. I got to say, Nides, you do. You've always had your own style. I said, you're like the Nikki Sixx of hockey. Can you talk about, like, probably in Vegas, you would fit in a little more with your flow than Winnipeg, but I don't know, man. Who dresses you?
Well, it started, on my own, and I think it's evolved. Now that I've been in Vegas, I deal with Stitched here, and I have a girl named Megan who works there. She's tremendous, and I love their stuff. It's funny. I like, the good thing about Vegas is you can push a couple outfits. You can push that line of, and what I love about style is, may not be for everybody. And I think you got to have a little uniqueness, a little bit of your own kind of taste into it. And if you're happy with it, great. Who cares what other people think? And I think that's the one thing I learned early is if I like it, I'm going to wear it. I've moved more to comfort. I love that they're making suits now that are like, those it feels like track suits. So for me, as I'm starting to, as 50's right around the corner, Rod, I think I'm more like, it's like not the leisure suits the old guys wear. I'm not to that point yet, but they make suits now that are just as comfortable and they're coming out with patterns. So yeah, it's funny you mention that. I just did my suit shopping for the year last week. So I'm excited to move on. I've had to get rid of some. That's probably the one thing I get grinded about here is cleaning out my closet a little more often.
Well, hey, you've never cared what people think. That's what makes you so unique and so successful. Number
Yeah.
two, come to Florida. I'll show you some leisure suits, man. When you guys come here, I'll take you
That's
around.
right. Yeah.
It's the leisure suit capital of North America. Allie in Texarkana writes in. She says, "I love bold suits. They are fantastic. Follow Nides. He's the man." Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in. He says, tear jerking final debut for Marc Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh the other night. And I don't really talk to the Vegas people about Flower
Yeah.
because for obvious reasons. But what are your thoughts on the way that he went out? And I mean, he's clear Hall of Famer. What do you think when you hear
Yeah.
the name Marc Andre Fleury?
Well, just a terrific human. He was great what he did here. He was near the end of his career, you got to remember, but talked about that year one. They don't beat the Winnipeg Jets without Marc-Andre Fleury and what he did in that series. Tremendous. And I think he was the perfect thing they needed for, a franchise here. His personality certainly has been talked about, beloved teammate by all. And, I think for him going back to Pittsburgh makes sense. That's where it was for him, Sid and Letang and Gino, all those guys back together, him playing one more period. And, I just hope I know he's a competitor. I hope this is it, right? He's done everything. He kind of had his last year where he went around and celebrating. Now he signs with the Penguins, plays a period. I don't want to see in January all of a sudden. Well, I don't think he could. It'd make no sense now after he's kind of signed with the Penguins. He can't go and play somewhere else. So for him, just as you mentioned, a Hall of Fame career and got to probably end it the way he wanted, which not many guys do. Going back to the team that drafted him number one overall, plays a period with the guys he won Stanley Cups with, the core of that team still playing. I think a pretty special way to end your career and rare for someone to be able to do it, but he was able to do it. And wish him all the best on his next adventure.
That same Allie in Texarkana writes in. She says, he is a perfect human. Love Flower. He's in well, I guess he's out of the NHL now, but him and Bob are like my guys. As you know, I'm a goalie guy. And speaking of Bob, I got to get your take on the Florida Panthers. I was
Yeah.
with them all day Saturday. They were talking about who's going to fill the void of Barkov being out. You don't fill a guy's void like that, but
Oh
they did
yeah.
refer to Marchand, a guy that you won a Stanley Cup with. At 38, he just signed a 6-year deal. How long do you see him playing, and what do you think he's capable of here this year with the Panthers and this team overall?
And don't underestimate him. I think yeah, age is something it's harder to fight, but I think he does a good job maintaining himself. And he's always been one of those guys, and you have him. I think remember this is rookie year. The more you doubt him, the better he's going to be. So I think he constantly I think certain thing drives players, and that drives him. He's always played on the edge. That's what makes him such an ultimate competitor. Um, when he started fourth line with the Boston Bruins, playing with Sean Thornton and Greg Campbell. Like, he was part of the fourth line, and there's a story of him going in and telling Claude Julien, "Yeah, I can score 20 if you play me." So that's early in his career. Obviously, he's matured a ton and become just a great leader and a guy that, in that room, unless you have him in that room looking for the outside, he's hated. But in that room, those guys know the value he has. And I think his experience, as you mentioned, you're not going to replace a Barkov. There's just no way. You can do it by committee the best you can. They're going to have to look at options down the middle. They're going to have to find a way to stay in it with Kachuk out too. If they can get to playoffs, though, it'll be interesting because they're saying what 7-9 for Barkov. Well, these guys nowadays with the sports science and the healing, you can get to playoffs in April. You might get a little bit of a bump then, but that's down the road. We can't foretell the one thing I can't do is predict the future, but certainly I think the Panthers they'll find a way. They've got a culture there that they've built. Obviously, going the final 3 years in a row, winning twice. There's no quit, so they'll find a way. It'll be interesting to watch how it all plays out.
Scott in Vancouver asks, Shane, do you believe Atlanta deserves the NHL again?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, they're expanding. I think when you look at the market there, it is massive. I played there for 2 years. I will tell you this. I was fortunate. We won the Southeast Division the year I was there. It was the only year they made playoffs. Um, Loved living there. It is such a massive area. I just think you can't compete downtown with what they're planning on doing, I believe, in Alpharetta and putting out there. There is a thirst for hockey there. I haven't been back in years, but I think it could work. I really do. But you can't be downtown competing, certainly with colleges, the college sports, the NBA. I think the NBA and Braves they get along, but it's still I think college is the show there. So I think it's you got
Yeah.
to strategically place it. Um, I'd like to believe it can work because I loved my time at Atlanta. I liked being a Thrasher for 2 years, and I was fortunate to we had a team that was pretty incredible when you go back and look at the roster. We won the Southeast. We lost four straight to the Rangers, but the likes of Keith Kachuk and Ilya Kovalchuk and Marian Hossa and it's a pretty special group. But it'll be interesting to see. We'll see if the league expands, but I'd certainly put Atlanta as one of those spots, I believe, just because I think if it's done right and they have the right I think anything nowadays, right? If you have the right ownership, like, look at what's going on in Utah. You get the right owners that are willing and committed that can strategically put it in place. I believe it can work.
Well, it's funny. If it happens, which I think we all believe it will, it'll probably happen fast because it's funny. Everybody's talking Houston and these other places, even Quebec City, and all of a sudden Salt Lake City, what? Out of nowhere. All of a
Yeah,
sudden they got a team within months, right? I mean, when they want it,
incredible.
it moves real fast. Yeah. Well, we got 90 seconds here, but like Arizona, sounds like Shane Doan is involved in getting a team back there. Would you like to see it?
Yeah, again, another area. You have so many people there, but the building's in the wrong spot. You can't be out in Glendale. They need something in, I believe whether it's Scottsdale. I know they looked at Tempe, that didn't work, but I think in that Scottsdale area, you've got to be more central where you can draw from that large area of people. There's certainly still a big fan base there. It'll be interesting to see if they can make it work. Obviously, there's a passion for hockey there, and it started when the Coyotes came and they grew hometown players. You look at Austin Matthews, and I've seen it here in Vegas. The sport has grown massively since the Golden Knights came, and you look forward to that one day when maybe there's a first overall pick here. It was a Nevada-born Las Vegas kid.
When Vegas born will actually mean, well, it does mean something, but to have
Does it
somebody
mean? Yeah,
born
yeah,
there playing, yeah, you
yeah.
know what I mean. Nides, it means so much that you would be our first guest here on the Silver State Sports Entertainment Network. Thanks for coming on. I hope to see you soon.
My honor, my man. Have a good year, and we'll see you down the road.
Thank you, partner.
Take
The great
care.
Shane Hnidy of the Vegas Golden Knights television broadcast crew. We'll be back in a moment. We're live on the Game Plus television network, of course, the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network, YouTube Live, podcast, and Mission Radio.